What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, some of them, they're down south, the good old New Orleans, Louisiana for Super Bowl LIX, and some of them are back home making decisions about the quarterback, the running back, every other position. And we got plenty to talk about. You know, a year ago, we had a conversation about somebody talking about somebody else, and yeah, they were pretty wrong. And this year, they just decided they're doubling down. The annual Micah Parsons bashes on TJ Watt saga continues. Meanwhile, a Pro Bowl quarterback, a former Pro Bowl quarterback, says, I would love to come to the Pittsburgh Steelers this offseason and maybe be a starter. We'll dive into both of those, plus more, and we'll answer all your questions on a rainy but a good Thursday here in the city of Pittsburgh. I told you, you said you were driving up to just outside the city tonight. I said you should have drove up last night. For anybody who was in the city, I know you saw the craziest lightning storm ever in the middle of the night last night. It was crazy. Like, I'm talking the first bolt or whatever, entire house is lit up. It's like all the lights came on. You're sleeping. You see it. And then boom, it just explodes. And then it went on for like 30 minutes and it faded so fast. It was wild. All of a sudden it was just gone. There was no rain. There was no nothing. It's cool to get those in February. I think you should have drove up in it. Thought it would have been a good time. Instead, you're going to go in bright, sunny, 50 degrees out there, you know, taking the easy way. How you feeling, my friend? Excited for the drive?
Yeah, certainly not excited for the drive, but happy that I'm not going to be driving up during a rainstorm. I also want to know how close or how long is going to take for you to actually call this Super Bowl 59 instead of trying the Roman numeral thing out, because last week you called it Super Bowl Licks. Now you're saying LIX. I understand that that's a step forward, but we could just call it Super Bowl 59, man.
I honestly, until you said the number, I had no idea what the number was.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't hear it anywhere. And even if I did, my brain just surpassed it the whole time. And I was just like, all right, well, we're not going to figure this out right now. You know, I'm not going to guess what an L is. In my head, an L could be many things. 50 was not, well, I could have came up with the 9. Could have told you 9. 50 was not coming out of this brain. Not today, not at 4:05 in the afternoon. LIX. Licks. I like licks. Super Bowl licks. That's a good one. Pause. You know, so, but we'll go 59. We'll call it 59. I'm glad that I figured it out 3 days before the game. And yeah, otherwise I would have watched it and it would have came on. I would have been like, look at that one. Yeah. There it is. Yeah. Hope the drive's good. Hope it's smooth. Hope you get up here safe and sound, as always. In the meantime, we'll talk some Pittsburgh Steelers football. We do have one news and notes, and I'll send it to you your way to kick this show off before we get into the annual why is Micah Parsons talking the way that he is.
Yeah, you led off this show by saying that everybody is down in New Orleans for the Super Bowl, which means we're getting a lot of quotes coming out of Radio Row. And today it was all about Jay Glazer, because he was talking about quarterbacks and where they could go, talking about Russell Wilson and saying he's definitely not reuniting with Pete Carroll in Las Vegas. And then he gave his opinion on if Russ could come back to the Pittsburgh Steelers. When talking with NBC's Fantasy Football Happy Hour, Glazer said he doesn't know who's going to start for the Steelers in 2025, but he knows it's not going to be Russell Wilson. Quote, I don't think that's going to happen either, he said when talking about Wilson not returning to Pittsburgh or going to Las Vegas. I think you'll see a new start for Russell somewhere else. So Jay Glazer says no Russell Wilson back in the city of Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think that one was a bit wild that he just came out and said Russ is done. It's not going to be Russ in Pittsburgh. And there's the thing, dude. When Dulac talks, you listen. When Jay Glazer talks, you pay attention to every single word, because it means something. Glazer, it's no secret that him and Tomlin are tight. There is no secret whatsoever. When you, Tomlin, and oh man, forgive me for forgetting this name.
Was it Arthur Smith that was with them?
It was Arthur Smith, and then it was who's the Brett Michaels. Thank you very much. Are eating wings together in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. you got a tight connection. You guys are tight knit. You know your stuff, your friends, your buddies, your pals, and you're going to tell him the information that you're not going to tell anybody else. We already kind of knew it wasn't going to be Russ. He pretty much solidified that it's not going to be Russ. We could scratch that one off. I think the bigger thing here is, not to, again, all respect to Adam Schefter. That guy is the GOAT. He's the legend. It is just, again, clear as day who you're getting your information from, because Schefter's getting it from Russ's side, where they're saying there's been expressions of interest here. The Steelers have definitely told us there's a possibility, and Jay Glazer from the Steelers side going, I don't think it's going to be Russ. I got a hard time believing it's going to be Russell Wilson in 2025. On the same note as that, though, if you go deeper into that quote, he does talk about Justin Fields, and he does not by no means say that Justin Fields is coming back to the Steelers in 2025. He leaves it pretty open that they have no idea who their quarterback is going to be this upcoming season. I took that a little bit as maybe Justin doesn't necessarily want to come back to Pittsburgh or isn't all in on coming back to Pittsburgh. He's taken this as somewhat of a business situation, as he should. I could be taking it wrong. I could be taking it in a way that says Justin is the one saying, just because of what I've been told, when really it could be the Steelers are saying, because they're not 100% in on Justin Fields. But I mean, that would cross what I, again, have heard from sources. Makes you think that they're not very close on that reasonable deal that the Steelers are looking for between the two. Did you take that differently? Then it's not as cut and dry of this is Justin and we're moving forward here for the Steelers.
You put in my mind in a pretzel a little bit with the cross-referencing of sources versus sources there. But no, whenever I saw him say that later part about Justin Fields, it just to me seemed like, all right, well, they don't have an agreement in place. And you've talked about it. I've talked about it. Anybody who follows Justin Fields is well aware that he is miles and miles and miles away from the city of Pittsburgh. Now, of course, he doesn't need to be in there for the negotiating. He's not going to be in there for a lot of the negotiating. It's his agent. But also, in Glazer's report, he said he talked to Mike Tomlin yesterday. They're focused on last week, the Senior Bowl, this week, combine prep. They are compartmentalizing is the word that Jay Glazer used, which means to me, that just says, they haven't made that decision because they haven't had those discussions, at least severely. I'm sure they've talked about it. I'm sure Mike Tomlin has sat there at lunch and said, what do you think we should do? But from what that report indicated to me, it just told me that the Steelers haven't had any serious conversations about the direction that they want to go and making that statement of saying, hey, we're going to now pursue Justin Fields in 2025.
I think it's wild that if that's the case, that they have not done that. That is like, how do you start your offseason in any other way?
I think,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I think part of it is they want to look at these draft quarterbacks. And I know me, you, and everybody on the outside knows that those draft quarterbacks, at least in week 1 of 2025, are not going to give you anything close to what Justin Fields is. But these guys like to have all of the information in the basket before they make a decision, especially an organization like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who belabors on every single minor detail before making a decision. I think that's a big part of it. Whenever he says, they're talking Senior Bowl, they're talking combine, I think they want to have all the information about all of these upcoming quarterbacks in the NFL draft.
I agree. I agree that is probably where they're going here. I will say that they are putting themselves in a pickle if that's the case. They better wrap this thing up fast, because you let Justin Fields hit free agency, you're going to lose Justin Fields. That's just how it's going to go down. You let these guys go into free agency, you're looking at Jameis Winston, who we're going to talk about in a little while, being the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025. Not anybody that's going to get you to a Super Bowl or move you forward or put you in a position where maybe you grow into something more than you currently are. You are just going to sit there with the guy who is not a starting quarterback and is a starting quarterback for you in 2020. That's how you end up with Mason Rudolph back there as your starting quarterback this upcoming season. That's a bad place to be. I don't agree. Like, I understand the philosophy behind it if that's the Steelers' plan. I disagree with it wholeheartedly, because you have to get this done before free agency. You cannot let Justin Fields walk into free agency and test his market because his market's going to be way more than what you're looking to spend on a quarterback. And next thing you know, you're drafting Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart at 21, and everybody knows what's coming, and it's going to get bad real fast. That's how Skylar Thompson ends up in a game in 2025. I'm not talking as a starter. I mean, probably as a starter, but I'm not talking week 1. I'm talking week 16 because you're out of options. You're Bailey Zappi-ing it at the end of the season because you're just trying to do anything you can to save this year. It'd be bad, man. It'd be bad. I don't think that's the way to go. I think it's wild that the Steelers, Art Rooney spoke to us, sat there and to our faces said, priority 1 is the coaching staff. Priority 2 is the quarterback. There have been no changes on either. What is happening? Like what is going on right now with the Pittsburgh Steelers? How are you this stalemate a month into the offseason? Like, how is nobody? That's neglect. If we're going to be like, I don't care about the Senior Bowl. I get it. It was a great time. You have people working different routes. What are you doing? How are you not doing this correctly? I don't know whose fault it is, but somebody has to be at blame for what is going on right now. This is nuts. This is not, if this was a week ago, it's okay. Where we are right now, like, what are we doing? How is this? How did we get this far without a single change or a single direction being made for the Pittsburgh Steelers, that they're just heading into the offseason like, we'll figure it out. Okay, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Any final thoughts on the quarterback situation from Glazer there before we go on to good old Micah?
No, I just love that whenever you sent that to me and you said, yeah, Schefter's saying Russ to Pittsburgh, Glazer saying not. I'm like, well, this just proves that I was right a couple weeks ago when the Schefter report came out and I said, it feels like it's coming from one side and that side isn't residing on South Side right now.
Yeah, no, that guy is wherever they live in the offseason, that is where that's where that side. The expressed interest was, again, a sit-down meeting at the end, an exit interview saying, yeah, Russ, we'll see what happens. We appreciate you. We love you, blah, blah, blah. We'll see where it goes. Russ walked out of there going, I think I got a shot. I think I'm coming back to Pittsburgh. I'm coming back to Pittsburgh. All right, let's talk Micah Parsons and TJ Watt, man. What are we doing here? This is 2 years in a row that the Dallas Cowboys superstar and the guy that we picked at the beginning of the year, 1 year ago this week, said Micah Parsons is going to win Defensive Player of the Year because he is the next guy, because last year Myles Garrett did not deserve it and won it, at least in my opinion. You don't have to share that opinion. No one has to share that opinion. My opinion is TJ Watt should have won Defensive Player of the Year last season and not Myles Garrett. This year, if Micah Parsons was healthy, he would have won. And honestly, it would have been a cakewalk because nobody walked away with the award this year. Nobody made a clear-cut, I am the guy in 2025, which would have made it so easy for the NFL to just say, Micah's next. He's the next big name. We have to give him one because that's how we do this thing. That's how we situate the Defensive Player of the Year. I don't expect TJ to win Defensive Player of the Year tonight, unfortunately. I think it's going to go to Pat Surtain. What I do think is that TJ Watt is a top 5 pass rusher in the NFL. Potentially number 1. He might be the best pass rusher in the NFL. And I think there's a pretty good argument. Who doesn't agree with that is Micah Parsons, who left TJ off his list for a second year in a row and then had this to say about the Steelers edge rusher. Quote, you said a pure pass rusher. If you look at what I do, what Miles do, we all move around. I play right tackle. I play nose. I play left guard, right guard. If you talk about pure pass rushers, it's probably a few of us that are in a league of our own, and everyone else is pretty much just high-end rushers. They don't got versatility. They don't move around. They don't create matchups. He went on to say this. He is going to be a Hall of Famer one day. But what I say, where the league's at now, pure pass rusher, I mean, come on, bro. I don't even think it's close. I will start the conversation by saying this. Even if Micah Parsons is healthy for a full 17 games, he is not the pass rusher that TJ Watt is. I'm sorry. And I understand that TJ does not move around and he needs to. And that is something that Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons do. And they create matchups for their team. I understand that side. TJ still gets more sacks than them in a season. He still gets more tackles for loss for them in a season. He still gets more interceptions and forced fumbles and so on and so forth than both of them in a season. Not this season. It was a down year for TJ Watt, but in every other season, that is how these things go. All while playing one side, not creating matchups, not creating havoc across the board, which means that an offense can say, TJ Watt's right there, go to the other side. See him? He's right there. Let's go over here every single time. And guess what TJ does? He wins. And he goes out there and he performs. And he has all pro seasons. And he has historical seasons. And he does crazy things like have 108 sacks before the age of 30. That is nuts. TJ Watt is probably the best pass rusher in the NFL. I think you'd have to sit here and debate it. I'm not going to say it's a clear cut. There's no argument against it. But there's a strong argument for it. And I'm sorry, but it just seems the way I look at this is we say things sometimes, and I try to be very truthful to my actual thoughts and opinions. Like I try to not create drama where drama doesn't need to be created. Sometimes I say very dramatic things that you say, Noah, you're being dramatic. And I'm saying, I get it, but that's how I feel. I'm just a dramatic human being. In my opinion, Micah is just talking, trying to create himself to be the greatest, just like Myles Garrett was doing all season long when he's not. And at the end of this, if Micah goes down without a historical season, if Micah goes down and never has the crazy defensive player of the year that he needs to have, all of this in 10 years is just going to look like a very good pass rusher trying to talk himself into elite status. It's Chad Ochocinco trying to create himself as one of the greatest ever when he wasn't. That's what this is. That he is saying, I played the same time as Randy Moss and I was just as good as him. No, you weren't. Micah Parsons right now is saying, I'm playing the same time as TJ Watt and I'm just as good as him. No, you're not. And because of that, I mean, it just sounds foolish. You know, there's a way to say we play different positions. And if we're talking all around versatile edge rushers, me and Myles Garrett are the two elites. If we're talking pass rushers as a whole, you know, this is where we're at. But leaving TJ Watt off that list in general is wild. And it comes with nothing but Micah just trying to draw attention and create clicks. That's what I'm getting out of this.
The first thing that came to mind whenever I saw that this happened again, and then, of course, when I was watching Micah and what he had to say again, was what is the goal of a pass rush?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's to sack the quarterback.
Yeah.
Who has led the NFL in sacks for 3 years? Not for 3 years, because it's not the last 3, but who has led the NFL in sacks in 3 of his 8 seasons? TJ Watt. Yeah. So how is he not a good, pure pass rusher? And I mean, Micah Parsons did go on to say that if you look at a whole football player, as a football player, TJ Watt is one of the top 5. But the thing that he does the best is rush the quarterback. So how is he a top 5 all-around football player and not a top 5 pure pass rusher? And the crux of the entire argument for Micah Parsons was, well, I move around. TJ, as you mentioned, he didn't need to move around. It took the NFL 8 years to catch up to TJ Watt. They knew where he was going to be. He's going to be on that side every play, and he's coming after the quarterback or he's dropping. Those are his 2 things. And he does it elite on both instances. They knew he was there for 8 years. And this is the first time that he's had a down season. And guess what? He has an invitation to the NFL honors tonight because he's a Defensive Player of the Year finalist in the year that everybody figured it out. So I think next year is a year that TJ can just come back and shut all this down, because he even said in his end of season presser, what am I going to do? I'm going to be open to moving around more next year and figure out how to make plays in that instance. And if he does that, then the entire conversation, the entire argument for Micah Parsons is out the window. So I found it very interesting that once again, he was going after him in this setting, but also that his only argument was, well, we move around, me and Myles, so we create bad matchups. We create opportunities for ourselves. TJ, by staying in that position for 7 years and being as successful as he was for 7 years, like I said, he led the NFL in sacks 3 times of those 7. Yeah. Created more opportunities and more mismatches for everybody else on the defense. So you want to say you're a better pure pass rusher because of that? Sure, fine. But TJ's a better teammate because what he did to sit there and be that good opens up opportunities for others. And it's not all about me, and how many mismatches can I create for myself.
Yep. Look at, if you don't have to move and you could still do things like the Atlanta Falcons game, you don't got to move. You're very much so. Okay. I think it's hilarious that last year the argument was the pressure rate, the made up stats, the double team rate. This year, it's not that, because guess what? TJ was double teamed all year long. That's all he was double teamed and did phenomenal things. And Micah's got, well, he doesn't move around. That's the problem. He doesn't move around. Who cares? Moving around doesn't mean anything to me at the end of the day, does it? I could care less. You could go all over the field. Micah Fitzpatrick goes everywhere on the defense. Nobody's sitting around saying Micah is the best safety in the NFL right now. Nobody. They're just not doing it. You know, that's just, it doesn't make any sense. Okay. It's an argument to be had because you need to make the argument because you made it a year ago and now you're sticking to it. I don't know what Micah Parsons and TJ Watt have. I don't understand the beef that's there. What I do know is that if they both retired right now in 20 years, and I get it, Micah has played 4 less seasons than TJ, but in 20 years, nobody would remember Micah Parsons and everybody would remember TJ Watt. And Micah needs 4 years to put himself into the TJ Watt category before he could start talking like this. That's what he needs to do. Mm-hmm. You got to earn your stripes, man. Myles Garrett, people will remember for many reasons. Some wild, some defensive player of the year, some crazy, you know, and I mean crazy as in like crazy athletic. Right, TJ's this, just, you're gonna remember him because he was great, you know. Micah right now, he's got to prove that. You got to stand up, and that's the argument for. At the end of the day, Myles Garrett could sit here and say, "I'm the guy." You look like a fool saying that, but when you do those things, yeah, I get it. You got to earn your stripes to be able to say stuff like that. I think it's wild that this came out of his mouth 2 years in a row, and now it's never going to end. You know, Mike will be talking about this until TJ's 40 because it keeps him relevant, and that's what he's going to do.
I'll say what I do need, even though I know it's not going to happen, I need TJ surprisingly winning Defensive Player of the Year and then a hard camera cut of Micah Parsons sitting there. Mm. I would love to see Micah be the guy that criticizes somebody winning Defensive Player of the Year. I would love to see Micah be that guy, because you don't look like a bigger fool than being the guy criticizing the Defensive Player of the Year in a year where nobody won it. There are arguments to be made in years past, you know, and there were times where I think TJ should have won it, but Aaron Donald won it. You're going, well, I'm not going to say anything bad about Aaron Donald. Like, he clearly won. He deserves these things. The Stephon Gilmore year. All right, I get it. There's an argument to be made. Last year was the first year where you felt that shouldn't have been the case. That shouldn't have been the case. This year, I mean, it could go to any of the 5, and you'd be like, okay, yeah, there's an argument to be made there. To be the guy that criticizes that would be wild. But that's Micah, man. He's staying relevant. He is learning well from the Dallas Cowboys. That's what we could say. He is learning well from the Dallas Cowboys. All right, let's finish off our agenda here. And if you got reactions to Micah, toss them in the chat, dude. We'll toss a couple of them in at the end just to give us some kicks here. We'll finish our agenda before we start answering questions and so on and so forth with good old Jameis Winston, my friend. The Pittsburgh Steelers, well, a door opened for them today. That door was Jameis Winston potentially being their quarterback in 2025. When running through a list of cities on Pardon My Take, Jameis Winston was asked about the city of Pittsburgh and playing there, and he said, quote, "I don't know what my Browns would say about me, about Pittsburgh. It'd be challenging, but it doesn't really matter. If that opportunity presents itself, I would love to team up with Coach Mike Tomlin. I admire Coach Mike Tomlin so much." Now, this being said, before you get gung-ho on Jameis wants to go to Pittsburgh,
Every team that has been named at the Super Bowl, Jameis has been like, I would love to play for that team. That sounds like a phenomenal team to play for. Every single one of them, because he's 31 years old and he needs a job. And I get it. You know, I'm all about it. I was looking up Jameis stats today. We'll start the conversation here. I was looking up Jameis stats today. This guy has thrown. You got to give him. First off, I love Jameis. I think he's hilarious. I think he's a good football player. I think he's a great teammate from what I've been told. And I think after the NFL, he is going to have one phenomenal career somewhere in front of a camera at all times. I think he should have a podcast with Barstool Sports or somewhere there, because I think he could be his true self. But if he wants to come on our show, that's more than welcome as well. Jameis Winston, if you look at his stats, should not be in the NFL. He should have been a guy that did not make it as long as he has made it in the NFL. But he has, and you got to give him credit. You could do that. Look at Jameis's stats, okay? He has thrown what I believe is, and I have it here. 154 touchdowns to 111 interceptions. He carries a 36-51 record in the NFL. And he's still kicking as a guy that could be a starting quarterback in 2025. That is impressive. Okay, that is impressive. You don't see those numbers on everybody. You don't see the Bruce Gradkowski got a job today. Looked up his stats, better than Jameis Winston's in some degree. And you're going, all right, there it is. You know, that guy played 6 years. Jameis is on, I believe this is year 8 going into it for him, something like that. Shout out Jameis, man. I love Jameis as a starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. We could sit here and say that's a terrible idea. If Justin Fields and Russell Wilson leave to go to other teams, and guys like Daniel Jones signs elsewhere, if guys like Sam Darnold stay in Minnesota, and I'm sorry, but I wouldn't touch Aaron Rodgers with a 10-foot pole. If the Rams decide they're keeping Matthew Stafford, Jameis is sitting there as a real option, and that is wild. What happens? What's the thought? What's the laugh? What's the level of expectations if Jameis Winston does, for some wild reason, end up the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025?
It will be the first time in 28 years of my life that I will bet the Steelers under win total. I will bet the Steelers will have a losing season because Jameis, listen, from an entertainment standpoint, yes, please, with as many exclamation points as I'm allowed to put at the end of that statement, because he is, and we're seeing it at the Super Bowl, he is one of the best parts of Super Bowl weekend of Radio Row to this point. He's entertaining. He's throwing W's, cookies that are W's to everybody on both sides, and almost beaming people in the head because they.
I was going to say, did you see his thing about the interception thing?
Yeah, he was throwing it to Travis Kelce, and it hit something. He said, "Man, somebody's already trying to pick me off," and that's Jameis. He is entertaining to a fault.
Yes,
but if I'm following what I've continued to follow all offseason, it feels like the starter in Pittsburgh is going to be Justin Fields. And what did Art Rooney say at his press conference, at his sit down discussion? He said he wants there to be kind of, in not so many words, unity in the quarterback room, as in the same skill set. Mm-hmm. We've seen Jameis Winston run.
Yeah, no,
it is not the same skill set between Justin Fields and Jameis Winston. So as a backup, as a personality, as a good person to have in the locker room, 100%, I love Jameis Winston. But at the end of the day, somebody's going to have to play football, and you need to be able to rely on your backup to step in and play football. Could he do that and be entertaining and maybe break some records like he did with Cleveland? Yes, but he could also cost you games and end up being benched for Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Bailey Zappi by the end of the season. So I think I'm passing on it. I think I'm passing on Jameis Winston as the backup. But, man, I'd love to see him in Latrobe. I would love to see him in Latrobe.
I would love, if I could spend one season covering Jameis Winston, I think I'd be very grateful for that season. I think I really would be very grateful for that season. Look, I'm not going to rule out the possibility that he does end up on the Pittsburgh Steelers roster. I think it's a very slim chance, but we just started this show by saying, what the hell are they doing? Why is it taking so long to decide on a quarterback? Why is Jay Glazer out here saying they haven't even started? So in my eyes, they haven't started. They're behind the 8 ball. You got to catch up. And if you don't catch up fast enough, you're going to look at the options and say, Jameis Winston is one of our best options right now. It's not good, but it's reality and it's scary. And man, it would be a dangerous time for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I agree with you. If Justin's the guy, Jameis is not the guy. If Russ is the guy, wow, would I love to see Russ and Jameis in the same quarterback room. I just don't think that I think you'd have to interview both of them after every single game. I think the press conferences should just go Russ, Jameis, especially after losses, because it would be nuts, the things that come out of their mouth to try to deflect this and just make it a good, glorious thing. Just like, you know what? I think we battled through the adversity, and the adversity came and it was heavy, but we got through it, and we're going to go to the next one 40 times on repeat in different variations. That's what would come out of both of their mouths. It would be awesome. It would be awesome. It would be so I think at some point you'd have to just they'd have to have their own locker room where they aren't allowed around pissed off football players, but it would be awesome. Chances of it happening, I'm not going to say zero. I'm not going to say zero. It should be zero. In reality, we have no idea what's going on right now. And even we know they want it to be Justin, but it's not Justin right now. So anything is on the table, and we will just simply wait and see who that option is. But shout out Jameis Winston, man. We've never gotten to talk about Jameis Winston. Shout out Jameis Winston, man. I'm telling you, I was looking at that stat line going, I don't know how he's pulled this off, but it's got to be because he's just so awesome.
He's one of the craziest quarterbacks that I think has been in the history of the NFL. I mean, the 30 for 30 season alone is enough to make him stand alone, but everything else that you get pre that year and post that year is just the best you can ask for. You pull up Pro Football Reference and you go to Jameis Winston, and you know how they bold all the league leader seasons, and you're going down, you're going, oh, he led the league in touchdown. Oh no, that was interceptions. Forgot about that one. And then you keep going, and you're just like, wow, dude, Jameis, dude, what a stud. What a guy. Gunslinger would be the word. Gunslinger. Love me some good Jameis. All right. With that said, that's everything on our agenda. We're going to start diving into your questions to end the show the same way we do every day. But first, we're going to take a quick break, hear from our boys over at DraftKings. Super Bowl 59 is right around the corner, and it's the perfect time to get in on the action with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, they're giving all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5. This is your shot to make every last play a moment to be remembered. Don't wait. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using our code ALLSteelers. The crown is yours. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. I do it all the time. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen, making watching the game that much more exciting. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code ALLSteelers and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code ALLSteelers only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out to our boys over at DraftKings. All right, we're going to finish off the show the same way. Hold up. You didn't notice the same thing I noticed? 30 minutes ago, you said, I didn't know until today that it was Super Bowl 59. You said it in that ad.
Yeah, dude, you think I'm bringing things up, and you think no, I am registered. No, you thinking things are registered in that ad? No chance, dude. No chance. You watch them. Okay, you watch the 45 takes that it takes. Yes, that it takes me to get that thing right. My brain is not registering what I'm saying. It is simply going, don't fuck up, don't fuck up, don't fuck up, don't fuck up the whole time, the whole entire time. And then when I do, it's just like a damn it. And then I get real angry for a second. And then we do it again. There's no, there's no chance.
Okay.
I couldn't, you could give me an ad read that in the middle of it, I like make some major life announcement for myself. And I'm telling you, I'd go weeks without having any idea that I did that. Without any idea.
Right.
No chance. Right. You watch them, dude. You watch them. I have to give myself pump-up speeches after the fourth time just to make sure that I'm not going to waste 5 minutes, just getting half of this thing right. No.
Right. Well, the defense rests. I guess we can get to questions now. But I heard that and I was like, wait a minute. This guy 30 minutes ago said he had not even thought about the fact that it was Super Bowl 59.
Nope.
And he said it like 3 weeks ago when he recorded that ad. So I had to call it out. But like
we've listened to it every day this week too. And
every day this week. Yeah.
I've zoned out completely during that ad every single time. I'm just sitting here drinking water and to be honest, reading the nutrition facts on cranberry health mix. So shout out. Yeah.
Very nice.
All right.
Peek into your brain was appreciated. But let's kick things off with Chris. Appreciate you as always. Chris says, Noah, do you think Kupp and Higgins are coming to Pittsburgh? And do you think the Rams would swap Kupp for George Pickens? Fields should be the quarterback, by the way. See you, Russ.
Yeah, I agree with the Fields part. I think if the Rams swap, I think if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you give up George Pickens for Cooper Kupp, you just got smoked in that trade, my friend. You've lost very badly. It's like Luka for I don't even know what it would be like. I would not be able to come up with a comparison there. You're giving up a 23-year-old wide receiver who, at bare minimum, you're getting one really good year for a wide receiver that you're probably going to get 13 games out of and feel good about it. No, they would do that. You should not do that. I do think that there's a good chance either Kupp or Higgins ends up in Pittsburgh. I do think there's a chance, but either one of them do. There's also a chance both of them do. It's a much lesser chance that both of them do.
All right, let's go down to Chris's second, which is if we lose Fields, are Joe Flacco or Jacoby Brissett our quarterback next year?
There's definitely a possibility it's Jacoby Brissett. The Steelers wanted Jacoby Brissett last year. They liked Jacoby Brissett, and then everything presented themselves, and they went, all right, now I guess Russell Wilson's a better option than Jacoby Brissett. That makes some sense there. Yeah, I could see Jacoby. I could, and it would. Oh, my gosh. That would not be good. You just don't want – Jacoby Brissett's fine. He's a good backup. He's not going to get you over the hump that the Steelers want to be in. If you're somebody who's rooting for a rebuild – perfect quarterback. But if you're somebody who's rooting to win a playoff game and see what this team can actually do, it's a bad move. I think it's a possibility Brissett ends up in Pittsburgh. I don't like it if it is.
All right, let's go over to Ricky, who says the difference between TJ and Micah is Micah has to move around and attack weak line points. TJ goes out there and gets sacks on Lane Johnson.
Thank you. It's a great point. It's a great point, Ricky. That's what we're talking about here. Like, it's just excuses, It's just excuses. TJ Watt 80 times will line up against Lane Johnson or every other right tackle in the NFL and have to beat them at least once. I mean, it's much more difficult, I think, in my eyes, to do that than to go move around. I'm not taking anything away from moving around. It's a key part to the game. And it adds versatility that certainly helps your team. But using it as a reason for somebody to be not as good is just wild and wrong. It's wrong.
All right, let's jump down to Cody, who says the TJ Micah Parsons conversation is like comparing Jordan to LeBron. LeBron got there, but it took him 7 more seasons. But at least LeBron caught up.
Oh, my gosh. I look at Cody. I love this comment. Okay. I like the comparison. I have to let it be known here. Okay. I can't hide this. I am a LeBron guy. I've always been a LeBron guy. I have stayed up many nights in nearly physical altercations with my father, trying to argue that LeBron is better than Jordan. And I understand, okay, in my older age that I am probably wrong, but I have a hard time comparing anybody in the LeBron Jordan debate here because I, in my soul, feel differently about LeBron than many do. But I agree. In any instance like this, that's exactly what it is where we are talking about somebody who has been here and who has done this for so long and remains a great, and then some new guy who's coming in here and trying to say, no, I'm better, even though I haven't done half of what you've done. That's, you could go create a player all day long on Madden. Trevor Lawrence is not the best quarterback in the NFL, whether everybody thought he was going to be the next greatest Peyton Manning or whoever coming into the NFL.
All right, let's keep the trend of these TJ and Micah comments going. Let's go to Jeffrey, who had a couple of statements here that we'll get to. First, how does moving TJ around change how we evaluate Alex Highsmith or Nick Herbig? Highsmith definitely thrives on the blind side, and flipping changes his game as well.
Yeah, he can operate on both sides, though. I think TJ can too, but Alex has shown that he could operate on both sides. He plays, especially the middle. Like, he could play the middle of the line very well as that third outside linebacker who's rushing, behind Cam or something. I do think that he works very well there. Nick Herbig could play both sides of the line. That's what he's done, is he's played both sides of the line. So I'm not really worried about either of those guys. I think it helps. I think moving TJ allows you to play 3 outside linebacker sets, which is what the Steelers want to do, and create more versatility for everybody, which keeps things distracted.
That's exactly what Jeffrey asks. So you read his mind. So tacking onto that, do you think lining Watt up in different spots could get Highsmith and Herbig and Watt all on the field at the same time? So same mindset, you and Jeffrey.
Yes. Great minds think alike. And yes, it would allow 3 outside linebacker sets. And that's a game changer for the defense when you have 3 guys like Watt, Highsmith, and Herbig.
All right, let's jump to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, if Max Crosby, Micah Parsons, and others want to clearly prove that they are better, then they should sign with the Steelers and line up opposite TJ Watt to see who gets more sacks. What are your thoughts?
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a fantastic idea. I have a hard time believing Mike Tomlin would sign Micah Parsons, knowing what he said about TJ Watt. I think Max Crosby would be unbelievable in the city of Pittsburgh. He looks like a dude who, if he didn't play for the Raiders, he should be playing for the Steelers. That's who Max Crosby is. But I think it would be great.
Let's go to the King family, because I love this comment in response to the basketball comparison with Micah and TJ. Says, Garrett and TJ are LeBron and MJ, not Micah Parsons. I kind of agree with that. If we're actually making the comparison, Micah Parsons is more like Chris Bosh in my eyes.
Micah Parsons is Kevin Durant. That's who Micah Parsons is. The guy who came in, looked hot, looks good, younger, and like everybody wants. You'll have that like little collective that's like, no, he's the guy. It's like, he's not the guy. Yeah, he's not. We all know he's not the guy. Yeah, I like this one. I think this one is a closer comparison.
All right, let's jump down to Demetrius. Appreciate you as always. Says, I think signing Darius Slayton and trading George Pickens in a 5th for Garrett Wilson is better than signing T. Higgins. I think Tomlin will stall the Justin Fields talks to keep his beloved Russ.
I don't think that he's stalling the talks to keep Russ. I think Tomlin likes Russ, but I also think he's very well aware that I think Tomlin is side Arthur Smith. Jay Glazer's comments, like, he dove into that whole interview. He dove into the changing plays and making it Russ and the ego and so much of that. And I think that kind of raised some eyebrows of going, okay, there was some tension there. Like, the Steelers wanted Russ to not be Russ, and Russ wanted to be Russ. He wanted to control everything. Steelers didn't want that. Mm-hmm. So I think that played a role into it. I think that's going to play a role into it. I don't think Tomlin's as high on Russ these days as he was during the season. I do like Darius Slayton and Garrett Wilson, though. I think that would be better than signing T. Higgins, certainly. If you could get Garrett Wilson and Darius Slayton, go draft somebody, that's fine. I'm very okay with that. I like George Pickens and T. Higgins as well, but I don't mind Darius Slayton and Garrett Wilson. I think that's a great combination.
Yeah, and also I'll say this, when thinking about Tomlin and his almost blind loyalty late in the season to Russell Wilson, a lot of that goes back to the promise that Tomlin made. We all know that when Tomlin makes a promise to a player, he tries his best to keep it. Well, that promise ran out at the end of the season. So the
Yeah,
loyalty might not still be there for Tomlin and Russell Wilson. Just keep it in mind.
I agree.
Let's go to Killa Cam, who says, "Hey, Nick and Noah, I was wondering if Russ and Najee leave and we sign T. Higgins and pick up some rookies in the draft, who steps up to be that kind of veteran offensive leader for the Steelers?"
I think there's a couple of guys. Pat Fryermuth would be one, as crazy as it sounds, because he's so young. Broderick Jones would be one. He'd be 3 years in the league. You'd probably look at Justin to be the guy to be that veteran and hope that he could be that veteran. And you'd have to go sign somebody. You'd have to sign a T. Higgins who could step in and be the veteran. You'd have to sign somebody. It'd have to be at the wide receiver position, you'd think. Isaac Seumalo would be a leader, but he's so quiet. But you'd have those guys. And to be honest, like, I think the defensive leadership is so loud and Arthur Smith is so good that you could have a young offense as long as Justin is able to command a room and there's no drama going on. You can make that work. Like, that could be enough leadership for your offense. I truly believe that.
You mentioned Chad Ochocinco earlier. Justin wants to know, did you see the James Harrison versus Chad Johnson possible fight?
Yeah.
Who do you have in a bout like that?
Oh, I mean, James Harrison by a million. If we were playing street rules, if this was a street fight, no cage, anything goes, Chad Ochocinco would smoke James Harrison only because James would get tired. That's how it would be. But you're going to put them in an octagon and say you could do whatever you want? Chad's got no chance. No chance. That's like it doesn't matter how good you are. It's the Bradley Martin versus Sugar Sean stuff. Like, where it's like even he admitted, like, if we're in the street, you're dead. But if we're in a cage, all you got to do is get a hold of me. Well, Chad Ochocinco is not Sugar Sean. James Harrison is still a scary dude. James Harrison by a million. Did you see that video?
Yeah, I saw the amount of "I want to kill you" eyes that James Harrison gave Chad Ochocinco, and I was like, dude, I would run. I would run if he looked at me for a millisecond like that.
Yes. I think it's hilarious that at one point he says something to Joey Porter as if Joey Porter is not a terrifying human being. And the whole time, Chad's just running his mouth, just talking, going off on these guys. Joey's laughing because he knows he'd kill him. You know what I mean? Chad's a talker. Joey's a get shot in Denver and doesn't care at all. And James is quiet because James knows he'd kill him. You know, he'd win by a billion. So I think that's hilarious. I hope it happens because this is not the first time they've talked about this, and it would be nice if they followed through.
Let's go to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, "Call your shots now on the most important Super Bowl question.
Ooh.
What's the Gatorade color?"
I was watching the Pardon My Take episode today with Lane Johnson. He said that on the sideline, they're big lemon lime guys. So I'm going yellow. If it's the Eagles, I will not pick the Chiefs color because I don't want them to win. And that makes me feel good. I'm going lemon lime either way.
I think it's going to be lemon lime if it's the Eagles because I saw the same interview and I'm like, that's inside information. I'm going to trust Lane Johnson.
100%.
And if it's the Chiefs, I'm going to say it's blue because blue's the best flavor.
It is. They would go blue. Unbelievable.
They're front runners in every essence, down to the Gatorade color.
Yeah, Andy Reid, man, playing mind games.
Let's go to Jim Matthews, who says, "I think that the best player on the Steelers was Cam Hayward. So why wasn't he a candidate for Defensive Player of the Year?"
I do agree with that. I think Cam is overlooked all the time. A couple of times throughout his career. The year that TJ won Defensive Player of the Year, Cam should have been a Defensive Player of the Year finalist. He shouldn't have won it over TJ, but he should have been a Defensive Player of the Year finalist. This year, he probably should have been an All-Pro. Or was he an All-Pro? No, he was not an All-Pro. This year, he should have been an All-Pro. And I mean, it should have been like we're talking about Cam Hayward as a Hall of Famer after this season. I agree with that. I think Cam was 1B to TJ as the best players in Pittsburgh this year. And there were stretches where Cam was the best player in Pittsburgh this year.
All right, let's go over to Tyler, who says, "What do you think about the Steelers trading for Joe Milton from the Patriots?"
I read this as Joe Mixon. I don't know why. I look at if they're going to keep Justin Fields and they could give up a 5th round pick for Joe Milton as a backup with upside. I don't mind it. Do you hate that move? I think Joe Milton's better than half the quarterbacks in this draft. The Steelers liked him last year. He's super athletic and has a rocket arm. Maybe he turns into nothing, but maybe all the 4th or 5th round quarterbacks in the draft this year turn into nothing. So I wouldn't be opposed to it if you could get an easy deal, which there's no chance he's going for anything more than like a 5th round pick.
Yeah, especially considering that the Patriots drafted a guy last year as well that's named Drake May, and very much so looks like the future of that franchise. So
yeah, they're going to get rid of him if they could stockpile picks. Who cares about your backup quarterback in New England?
All right, let's go over to Danny, who says, "What's more likely?" It is a Thursday, so let's go to this one. The Steelers get Cooper Kupp and T. Higgins, or they fire Pat Meyer and bring in a guy like Mike Munchak.
The Steelers get Cooper Kupp and T. Higgins is definitely more likely. Munchak I would be shocked. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I would be surprised if Mike Munchak got a job in the NFL this year because he hasn't been in the NFL and we haven't heard anything about him. And usually that means those guys are enjoying life, hanging out, chilling, doing their thing. And I just don't think maybe I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I'd be surprised. So I'm going Cooper Kupp and T. Higgins.
All right, let's go to Eric, who says, if you're assuming Justin Fields is the starter, who would be a better number 2 wide receiver for us to get this offseason? Garrett Wilson and draft an Ohio State wide receiver with him, or Cooper Kupp?
Garrett Wilson by a billion. Garrett Wilson and draft Micah Parsons is even better. That's as good as it gets. If you walk into the season with George Pickens, Garrett Wilson, and Micah Parsons, I'd give up Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, and everybody else. Be like, okay, yeah, we're fine. We only really need these 3. Everybody else could go on a trade. I don't think it's likely that happens, but that would be the option, definitely.
All right, let's go over to Adam, who says, hey, guys, this one is for both of you. If you could each choose a realistic draft pick of 1 wide receiver and 1 running back, who are the players from those positions that you guys would want? Mine are Golden and Caleb Johnson.
I would go Emeka Egbuka. Realistic, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, realistic. I would go Emeka Egbuka, and I like Caleb Johnson, but just to kind of change it up, I'd go Quinshon Judkins. I think I'm really turned into a fan of Judkins. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been on a running back fit. I wouldn't say film. I wouldn't say film. I'm not diving in. It's a mix of highlights and just like games that I would like to rewatch. It's a mix of that. And I like Judkins, man. He's a stud. So I would go Egbuka and Judkins.
I hate to do the same exact thing, but I am going to do the same exact thing. I think in the first round, Egbuka is the guy that I want the most. And I think going forward, I'd prefer Judkins over Travion Henderson. I think he'd fit in Pittsburgh more. I'm not saying he is miles better by any stance of the word. I just think that he, in a backfield with Jaylen Warren, would fit better in the city of Pittsburgh. But I do like Caleb Johnson too. Everybody that talks about him says that this guy is a prototypical Pittsburgh Steelers running back. So I see the same exact things and I understand why people like him, but I think I'd still prefer Judkins like you do.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's go to Pittsburgh Hornets, who says, out of the active Steelers, I'm wondering if you do know this, who has the hardest workout routine?
That is a good question. I don't know everybody's workout routine. I don't know many workout routines, if I'm going to be very honest with you. I would say TJ Watt is one of the hardest working human beings I've ever met. The guy never stops. But at the same time, later in his career, he has started to turn that wheel to say, I need to be safer. I need to not do dumb things like work out all the time. I have to play it a little bit differently, which plays a massive role into this. The hardest workers on the team, man, you'd be surprised at some of these offensive linemen, I would say. Deontay Johnson was easily on that list when he was here. Easily on that list. Van Jefferson was definitely on that list as well. There's never been a worker harder than Antonio Brown. That one is by far the number one answer ever if we're going to go, in my time in Pittsburgh. I would say, I don't know right now, to be honest with you. Jaylen Warren would be up there. He would be a name as well. But there are, I don't know everybody. Those would be the ones that I could highlight.
All right, let's go to Loswald, who says, Noah, who's a later round running back that you're looking at if we miss out on the likes of Hampton, Caleb Johnson, Judkins, and Henderson?
RJ Harvey, I think his name is, the UCF guy. He's a rocket, dude. He's so fast. He's got a little bit of weight on him. I'm not sold he's going to be a superstar, but I do like him. I would like RJ Harvey out of UCF. I think he's a name to watch a little bit later in the like 4th or 5th round. I'll toss a different running back option at you, though. What if the Steelers avoided a mid-round running back and as that third guy went Rico Dowdle out of Dallas?
That'd be interesting. Obviously, that's a much better receiving option than what the Steelers have had in the last couple of years. Maybe you actually get a screen game, but then again, I don't think it was the running backs who were necessarily the issue with that. I think it was more on the offensive line and the way that they played it. But I think I'd still rather, I mean, if you don't get, like if one doesn't fall to you, then Dowdle's not a bad backup option, but I would still rather take anybody in this question, for instance. So,
I agree. I'm talking a third. Third running back.
Yeah. Oh, it's a third running back? Yeah. Well, look at where we're coming from here.
Yeah.
Right? Sorry, Cordero, but like the time has passed. Like I would much rather Rico Dowdle than Cordero. I think that in that role especially, he just gives you a little bit more.
Yeah, I think if you went Dowdle and then a guy like Harvey too, I'd be okay with that. If you wanted to make Harvey your third and maybe work him into a 2. I think that both of those, I think that's an option to watch out for the Steelers.
All right, let's go over to Gunnar Davis, who says, tuned in a little late, but how early do you guys see the Steelers taking a running back in the draft? And who are y'all's favorites for the Steelers to land? I'm hoping for Dylan Sampson.
Wow, that's a new name that we haven't discussed yet. Dylan Sampson, that's not a bad one, to be honest with you. My favorite running backs are Judkins and Caleb Williams. Caleb. That's the second time I've done that in 2 days. Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. Ashton Genty's obviously on that list, but if we're talking realistic options, those are my 2. I think the second round, maybe the third round, but I think the second round is where the Steelers target a running back. I mean, unless Najee comes back, which Dulac is saying today, Najee's coming back. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. I think Caleb Johnson and Judkins are my favorites in the realistic options. And I think the second round is where I expect them to start looking. Third round, I don't think they go later than the third.
Skip down to Roger Steeler, who says, Derek Carr. I think he would fit Arthur Smith's system.
Oh, gosh. I don't disagree. And he's a much better option than a lot of these guys out there. You have to admit that one. I don't think Derek Carr wins you a Super Bowl. And I don't think Derek Carr is better than Justin Fields. The potential of Justin Fields. So I wouldn't go Derek Carr if my options were Derek Carr or Justin. I would go Derek Carr if my options were not Justin Fields. If it was just everybody else and Derek Carr, I don't hate that. What are you giving up for him and what do you got to pay him? Those are the questions. If I could get him on a 1-year deal, I'm very okay with that situation. If I can get him on a 2-year deal, I can make it work. That's probably as far as I'd go. And it's not going to be 50. Like you're getting $25 to $30 million max if you're Derek Carr.
All right, we got a couple more to go here. Let's go to Andrew first, who says, hey, guys, speaking of leaders, one thing Washington did last year was they brought in a lot of free agents who were known leaders, such as Bobby Wagner. Could you see the Steelers making similar moves?
Yes and no. Yeah, yes and no. It will be... It depends on the position. Like I could see the Steelers adding a defensive lineman that has been in the NFL for a while, who's a star, who they're willing to pay some money on and bring him in. I could see that certainly. I could see a cornerback that they are willing to bring in and spend some money on in that same situation. And I could see a wide receiver that they kind of take a flyer on like Cooper Kupp to say, we need some leadership here. I don't think it's going to be like a Bobby Wagner. I don't think it's that big of a name. I could see it in some places, but I think the Steelers have their leadership. They have TJ, they have Cam, they have Patrick Queen, they have Minka. Like they have these guys who have been here, who have played. Landon Roberts is another one. They have the guys who've been here, who've been in the NFL. Like, I don't think they necessarily need the Bobby Wagners like Washington did at the time.
All right, let's jump to Pittsburgh. Heather, who says, of the defensive backs currently on the roster, how many will still be on the roster on opening day this fall?
If we're going to go big names, we won't go the small ones. We'll go Minka's on the roster, Deshaun's on the roster, Joey's on the roster, Trice is on the roster. I think it's toss up on Beanie. I do. I get it, but I think it's a toss up. The way I feel about Beanie, the way the Steelers appear to feel about Beanie are two different things. So I would say it's a toss up on Beanie, and that's it. That's all they got. They got to sign at least a corner, probably two, and they have to sign a safety. Those or draft these guys. That's got to be very high on their priority list this offseason. I would say those 4.5 with Beanie are the only ones I could see.
Sorry, I had myself muted there. Let's finish it off with Eddie the Great, who has a shiny new membership tag here on All
Shout
Steelers
out our
Talk.
boy. I think Eddie's the first member of All Steelers Talk. So this is a great little way to transition into this. But first, I'll let you read the comment because this one's important.
All right, shout out to Eddie, who says, "Hey boys, can I get a 16th birthday shout out to my daughter Ava? I remember buying her first Palomalu jersey like it was yesterday."
Beautiful. Shout out, Ava. Happy birthday. I hope it's awesome. If you're going to get your license or whatever, be safe. Make sure that the tunes are bumped up. Your dad's not going to like that I'm saying this, but make sure they're lined up, ready to go. That Spotify playlist is rocking. Okay. Most important things here outside of the seatbelt. Happy birthday. I hope it's a fantastic one as always. And we appreciate you, Eddie the Great. This is a good way to transition into the announcement that we do have memberships now. So starting next week, we will begin a new episode that will drop Wednesday. We believe it's going to drop at noon on Wednesdays. We might run into every first episode. You never know what's going to happen. So the plan is noon on Wednesdays, they will drop. It will be a call-in show. So that means that if you become a member of All Steelers Talk, you will be given a phone number. You could call that phone number and leave your voicemail, your call, or your question, for us. I will answer it on the show. We will release that show on Wednesday so that you get to hear that answer. I'll answer all of them. So make sure that you are calling. If I got to sit there for hours, I'll sit there for hours. I appreciate you guys. And then on top of that, you will be given an exclusive email that you can hit up with your question, and one member a day will get a phone call from me to answer that question and any other questions that you got for me in a timely phone call. If I appreciate you guys, and I'm going to give you as much time as I possibly can. If Mike Tomlin's yelling in my ear behind me, I'll give you that little nugget and we'll be good to go. Hopefully, my hope for this is that I call you, and as I'm calling you, news breaks so that I can give you that news before anybody else gets that news, including Twitter. So that is the hope. But those are our memberships on top of priority when you guys send in your comments. So we'll dive into those. You can check those out on our YouTube page. So Eddie, we appreciate you. This is it's a good one that you are our first member. It feels right that you're our first member.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are going to head out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcast. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. We will be back tomorrow morning with a very sad Super Bowl prediction to end our year and the 2024-2025 NFL season. With that said, enjoy another beautiful day in the Berg. Peace.